I'm going to show how to create the sand dune effect using Affinity Photo's procedural texture filter. I first saw this one on someone demonstrating how to do this in Blender. This will consist of 3 different procedural texture filters, and then I'm going to pass it through a gradient map, and I do a little Gaussian blur to get the final image. I'm starting with a 1024 by 768 image. I filled it with black and it's selected. I'm going to go to the procedural texture filter. I select that. I'm going to start with a new equation. I'll just set all these to RG and B turn to on, and the equation I'm going to do is, first thing I want to do is to create a sawtooth effect. I'll just take, I'll create a variable for the coordinates. So variable v equals vector 2 of rx comma ry times a divided by w. Then I will take v dot x minus floor of v dot x. So that's the my x variable minus the integer part of that variable. And let's see, then I need to have my a variable for my scale, and I'll bring that up to 6 scale. That. So I can see this is ramping, and you can see in the scope here, this goes from 0 to 1 and then jumps back down again. So that's going to be the basis of the sand dune shape. I want to be able to do 2 other things to this though. I want to be able to rotate this, and I want to be able to add some turbulence to it. So I'm going to set that up. So I'm going to add a rotation custom input. I'm going to call it TH for the angle theta. And then I'm going to put those in up here. So I have Rx times cosine of theta, th, minus ry times the sine of theta. And then over here, I'm going to have Rx times the sine of theta and plus ry times the sine of theta, like that. So now, if I did that right, I should be able to rotate these. Okay, and if I hold the shift key down and go to any angle, or you can type in the angle here. Alright, so that worked out. Now I'm going to add the turbulence value for this. I found that if I use Perlin noise rather than regular noise, it gives me a lot more flexibility in the resulting texture. So that's what I'm going to use here. I'm going to call it TB for turbulence. I'm going to create a new variable, TB equals perlincubic, and I like the cubic, it's just a little smoother, and that has V, my coordinate vector, and then it has octaves, and it has a smoothness factor. So those are the 3 factors in that one. So I need to add an O and an S. Oh, and I need to multiply this by, I'm going to call it T, so I can scale it. And it turns out I want to make it more effective. So rather than just going from 0 to 1, and perlincubic goes a little beyond that range usually, but I want to make this, I'm going to make it 4 times bigger. So I need to add a T, an O, and an S. So let's see, the T will just go from 0 to 1, and that will be turbulence. And the O is octaves, so I'll put that in as a real value. And let's see, I'll call this one octaves. And I'll just give it a 7, or 7 is usually pretty good. And then the last part is a smoothness factor, and that just goes from 0 to 1, S, smooth. Okay. So right now it's not doing anything, it's just set up as variable. But over here I can add this, so I'm going to add it to my v.x, so just plus tb, and then I can add it over here, plus tb, and whoa. Okay, That was way turbulent. So I'm going to smooth this down, and really I'm not going to have that much turbulence at all, but I am going to, and I can drag this to find a new place, and then I can rotate this up until they look a little bit like sand dunes. And I sort of like these. I think I'll rotate it just a little bit further. Oh. And then I think I'll make it even smoother, somewhere around there. Okay, so I'm going to save this one. I've got some temporary presets set up here, and the ones that don't have category, I'm just going to call this one Dunes. Okay, so that's that one, and I think I will, I'm going to replace that, replace values preset for the default with this one. So when I bring this up, I know it's all set up. I'm going to go and create an adjustment layer, gradient map, and I'm going to choose Dune 5. This gradient map goes from white to white, so it starts here, it's not quite white. And I got these values, I sampled them from an image of sand dunes, so I thought they should be pretty close to the real thing. But I have these different values and set up in here. Like that. And then I just have this one go wrap around again to the beginning. I thought that might be useful. Not sure you have to necessarily do that. So there's my gradient map, and if I go back to my layers now I can see that. And I'm going to select this one and put my dunes filter back in here. So I go to my procedural texture, I have my dunes. I'm going to put in a factor I times this, and then an offset plus OF for offset. So I'm going to add two more custom inputs, an I that goes from 0 to 1, which is, I call that a fader, and then an offset value that will go from -1 to 1. I'll call that one offset, like that. And that way I can bring this, I'm going to bring this up to, I'm going to bring this down and push this up until it's just starting to turn white on there. So I want it mostly sort of golden, not too much shadow. Okay, I'm going to save that as my Dunes preset now that I tweaked it so I don't lose it here. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my FM function that I created in one of my earlier videos. If you're watching them in order, it's in the previous video. And that one used a oscsin oscillator of v.x. Inside of the oscillator, it's going to add another sine oscillator, oscsin of v.x. In this one, I'm going to be able to multiply it by a frequency, f1, and a fine frequency, ff. And I'm also going to be able to multiply this by amplitude. So I'm going to call it I1, F1, and FF. And I've got oscillator sine inside of each of those. It should look something like this. Oscillator sine, and then v.x plus I1 times oscillator sine of v.x times F1 times FF. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the turbulence factor in here. And I'm going to add a turbulence in here, TB, and I'm going to add one in here after all of this. So I think when I first did that, that was sort of a mistake. I should have added it here, but then I like it better over here for this application. So I'm going to add my turbulence in there, which is my Perlin noise. So let's do that. We're going to just go in here, add plus TB, and then go in here and add plus TB, like that. Okay. And now I can bring this up, and I can see a little bit of turbulence on there. I'm going to bring up this one. And I'll make sure I have this right. So there's that. I'm going to bring this all the way over. FM amount, so there's none. As I bring this up, you can see these lines, and we're starting to get more and more of these lines. So as I add my turbulence now, though, and turn my smoothness down. We're going to get these ripples. So that's what I'm looking for, those nice little ripples. Bring that up, and then like that. And I'm going to save that. And I'll just replace one of my temporary presets, so I call it Dunes 2. Okay. I'm going to close that, and I modified this one, so I'm just going to delete that, and I'm going to add my two filters back in again. Procedural texture. I'm going to do my dunes, like that, and now another one. I'll click on the pixel layer, so it goes above it, and then procedural texture, and my dunes 2. If I put the TB in here, I'd be able to rotate it, but the turbulence is out here, so when I rotate this, it changes. So it goes to just stripes over here, and then it goes back to having this turbulence in it. But I pretty much like that. So I'm going to keep it that way. I'm going to go to soft light, and then adjust the angle a little bit, see if I can find a good angle for this. I'd sort of like to be going across the dunes, kind of like that. Okay, and then I'm going to, so I think instead of lighten, I'm going to go to screen, and then bring this down. And I think it'll be a little bit more of a subtle effect, so that way I don't have as much up here. And one of the things that you may notice is that it just continues on in a straight line. It's not like there's an actual curve there, but you know, it isn't, that's just how it goes. Now the last thing I thought, well, I'll try to put in a little bit of sand texture to this, so I'm going to go with another one which I called Long Perlin. And it looks sort of like this. So it's just a random, but sort of stretched out. I don't want it quite that much, stretched that much. I'm just going to bring it down to about 3, maybe even 2. And then I'm going to put this though up at around 300. So it's just pretty much noise. And then I'm going to put this on top of it. As either a soft light, or like I did last time with a screen, I think. And I'll just try tweaking the angle a little bit. I think if it's going not too much, and then decrease the, just fade it in a little bit. And then I'm going to go through all of these and bring it all the way down, and then just sort of gradually bring it in so you can just see it until it looks good. And then I'll go back to this one and do the same thing. I'm going to change the opacity all the way down and then bring it back in until it looks good. Okay, so that's pretty much it. The only other thing I thought was maybe it'd be good to have a little bit of a Gaussian on this, so I'll add a Gaussian blur up here on top and just put in enough, sort of round off that edge up there, round off those. So it's sort of pixelated at the corner there, so just try to get some of that pixelation to go away like that. All right, so that's that. And this one I used the idea of, instead of just modulating with regular noise, modulating with Perlin noise to create the turbulence effect. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, and thanks for watching.